Hi everyone, this is Kyle Marshall, aka Againstime from Grinder School. Today I'll be doing another live video for you on Ultimate Poker. I've already got a couple games going here. As you all know, in these videos I try to stick around the stakes that most of you are playing, between like the $5 and $20 range. I did load up one of these step 5s. I saw one was about ready to load, and they don't run very often on this site, so I went ahead and jumped in on that. But I do have more of these $8 tournaments loading up. For those of you unfamiliar with the structure here, it's just like Poker Stars essentially, with the payout 50, 30, 20. Top 3 get paid, third place gets their money back, and there's 7 players instead of 9, so it lowers the variance a little, but essentially other than that the structure is the same. We also start off in the 15-30 blind level instead of the 10-20. That lowers your ROI slightly, getting less hands, but it's not too bad. I really do like these tournaments. You can get quite a few in an hour. Here with the 10-8 suited into 6 players, this is a little too loose for this blind level. On the 50-100, you could consider making a steal here on occasion. I still wouldn't automatically do it. It's fairly loose. Should have another game loading up here pretty shortly. Yeah, I'll try to keep it at 4. That seems to be a good number, so that there's plenty of to talk about, but not so much that it ever gets overwhelming. Here, even just for the min raise, we're not going to defend. We're just going to let this go. We would defend fairly wide there, but with King 9 offsuit out of position, it's just not worth it. A lot of players will defend with that hand. It's not awful to do so, but anytime you're playing out of position with a marginal hand, you're losing money in the long run, and it's best to just avoid those situations early on. Figure out which players are trying to steal from you, and then the later blind levels take advantage of that by coming over the top. Obviously happy to get kings here. We're about maybe 12, 13 blinds deep, something like that. We'll just let this go. If someone raises into us, we're looking to just shove. We're not looking to flat call or be cute with it. If this player limps, instead of just shoving over the limp, we probably would have made like a 3.5x raise or a 3x raise, something like that. Normally I would just shove over that limp with most hands that I would play, but against players that don't know who we are, how we play, then we can increase our profit and try to get in some small raises there with a big hand. Here with the Jack 9 suited, it's okay to limp. I don't normally like to limp in this blind level or after, but after a limp or before us, it's okay. If this had come from a later position, I might ISO raise with this hand. And if it had been folded to us, we would have raised on the button. You could probably raise this as early as into 4 or 5 players with this hand. Would be okay in this blind level. This is not a particularly prime spot, but we will try to steal here. We haven't become involved very often. We have a fairly tight image. We may get action here, but I think this is a good spot to steal. I don't particularly like the shortness of this stack. Had he shoved, it would have been one of those rare occurrences where you might see me raise and fold to a 10 blind or 9 blind stack. I only do that about probably less than 10% of the time. Very rarely do I do that, but that would have been one of the exceptions. I just thought it was a good steal opportunity considering our image. You won't normally see me raise through a 10 blind stack with a hand I'm unwilling to call a shove with. I would have been perfectly happy to make a steal here with this hand, but we can't call this 15 blind open shove. I don't know enough about this player to know where we stand. Often just flipping a coin there for our life, not really worth it. We have a good stack size. Here with the King Queen, we're gonna make it 350. Don't like dealing with the under the gun limp here, but the hand is strong enough to raise. You don't want to limp behind a limper and have a player shove on you. I think it's best to go ahead and define our hand here. If a player shoves over the top, we can fold. If this player shoves, we can fold. If he calls, then the hand plays well post flop and we have position. So I think that's the right way to play it. I made it 350 instead of 400 because our stack is getting pretty short and we don't have a lot of room to maneuver. Our opponent leads out here. I'm going to treat this like an expensive check. I'm just going to raise it up to 400. I don't want to let our opponent draw for free. There aren't many draws available, but I don't want to just call this and not know where we are and have like an ace come off. I did make a raise here, which is strong. The ace did come off anyway. This is kind of a difficult spot. I'm not inclined to believe we're beat here. I'm just going to call this down. We can't fold with these odds. I think raising is problematic. I think there's a fair number of hands that beat us. I don't know why you would even get involved with the 3-4. Had we raised there, the only hands we could expect to call us are either hands that beat us, another king queen maybe. We could possibly have gotten a call from like a queen jack or something like that. But there's not too many hands we could raise there. And so I think just calling was the right play. You saw me raise on the flop when he let out for 100. I definitely think that was the right move. Like I said, we didn't want to just call and have an ace come off for free. We made him pay, and the ace did come off, and then he let out again. And I think at that point it's just right to flat call. Would have gone all in on the turn had any card come off other than the one that did, the ace. Shove this ace queen, easy resteal here. We'll just fold this 10-9. This is super standard, perfectly fine for him to call our resteal, perfectly fine for us to make the resteal. Nothing either player did wrong. It's just an inevitable conflict. He could alternatively just open shove this hand. Either way is fine. I actually like the small raise better because I think you get action from hands that that you beat, and so I like that. But either way is fine. You can shove it if you'd like. This a button limp just reeks of weakness. Sometimes players will trap you, but I'm shoving a suited ace for 10 blinds or less over a button limp all day. If a player wants to trap me, they can, but most of the time they're just going to lose money by playing it that way. This is a silly resteal this player made, way too deep. Even if I think I'm ahead, it's not worth it to me to risk it at this point. This is really close here. Really, this is kind of hard. This isn't the player who I think knows how to shove appropriately wide. I'm going to let it go because these players are short, and I think he knows they're likely to call here. Against any reg, I would snap this off in a second. Against unknowns, it's a little harder to know where you stand. Here we're getting set odds. We'll just call. Would have loved to call there. We'll just let this ace-8 go. This is another spot where you can shove over a limp. Lead out here for 275. Apparently I didn't register my bet and I let out for 30, which I would never do, but anyway. Here I would have shoved with any suited ace, or probably like an ace-9 offsuit. This got the kind of action that we actually wanted to see here. This is not what I intended to do. Ultimate Poker software is not the best, and I don't know if I made an error or if it didn't register it, but sometimes it doesn't immediately register your commands, and so but this is a fantastic result for us. We'll shove this here with the ace-5. It's like our opponent was able to go runner boat on us, but this is really one of the finest results you could ask for here in this situation. We really couldn't have been in a better situation, and it's just unfortunate that it didn't go well for us. The likelihood of that kind of a draw out is I don't even know the odds. It's so small, to be honest with you. It's very low. I've seen it before, but it doesn't happen very often. Normally, the reason why I let out there is because I didn't want hands to get a free card. The 10-9 was there were draws, and plenty of opponents to be on those draws. And so my intention was to lead out for about half pot and provoke either a raise or at least make our opponents pay. We don't want to get checks all around. I don't want to check and then have an opponent bet and then raise all in or just call, because if we just call, we're not really forcing them to pay against the odds if they're on a draw. And if we raise all in, it looks so strong we're unlikely to get action on that board. So that's why I let out, and we got exactly what we wanted to get despite me having a bit of a misclick there. Unfortunately, we were drawn out on. This is a tough spot. This player likes to limp a lot. We will abuse this limp here. Don't particularly like to do so with a hand as weak as Jack 10, but this is a relatively high buy and sit and go, and these players are likely to be scared money. They're probably just trying to get in for cheap, and so we will take advantage of their fear. Here, don't really know this player, but you have to call this shove for 9 blinds in the cutoff, and as we see, we're fairly ahead of him. This looks like a steal raise to me, and this is a player who likes to make steal raises against me. He will also call this re-steal very wide because he's aware of my tendencies, but I will still make the re-steal because he does steal so often. As far as what I would move in, this is a pretty optimal re-steal stack size, and this player likes to steal an awful lot. I would go really wide here. Any pair, any suited ace, ace 5 offsuit or better. We'll just let this Jack Deuce go. King 5 suited or better, King 9 offsuit, Queen probably like 8 suited or better, Queen 10 offsuit, Jack 7 suited, Jack 9 offsuit. A lot of suited connectors and 1 gappers all the way down to maybe even like 6-5 suited. I mean, extremely wide because that player just, I mean, I really think he would min raise pretty much any button there, and so I have to come over the top that wide, or I'm just allowing him to take advantage of me. Okay, do we have any more games loading up here? Let's get another one. Okay, fold the 3-8. This you can shove. This player limps a lot. We'll just abuse that limp. It's not ideal, but it's okay, and we haven't really abused him too much. This is fine to call with the King Queen. We're ahead here, but I mean, I would call with the King Queen. I think it's good against our range. Looks like our hand will hold. Good call there against my ISO shove would be like, maybe King Jack would be the worst. King Queen offsuit, King Jack suited, something like that. 6s or 5, maybe 5s are better. Reasonable suited aces, things like that. Nothing he really did wrong there. Just happened to be behind that time. We'll just allow the slim to go. This is a great board to just kind of keep calling on. There's nothing really we're worried about drawing out on us here. King or an ace would be problematic if it's a non-club, but either way is fine. We'll go ahead and fire this. We want to build up the pot a little bit, but don't want to bet so much and then have him come over the top. Looks like there wasn't much value to be gained. Just check the 10-4. Easy shove with the ace-6. If our opponent had checked here, we would bet with nothing at all, because this is a board for us likely to have hit. I don't think he has anything here, but I'm not going to risk my tournament life to find out. We really don't have much we're able to draw but a gut shot, and I think it's best to just let it go there. Especially, I didn't even check the blinds, especially since they're going up now. It's really a poor time to get involved and take damage to your chip stack. All the players in this game are short. This player should never shove with like almost 45% of their stack in pre-flop. Never, ever fold that, no matter what your cards are. Every player here, though, is short. This is going to be mostly luck who comes out of this alive. We're going to play it correctly as aggressively as we can and shoving a lot, but that could lead to us getting eliminated. We'll see what happens, but you have to play this really aggressively. You can see most of these players are just trying to fold into the money. Sometimes that'll work, but in the long run, you make the money less often playing a passive, scared game like that. We'll keep making these small raises here until the player starts coming over the top. I would normally want to shove this, but these players are way too short and likely to get committed. We just can't be shoving through them that weak. Get another limp here. We'll let it go with the queen 8. We're going to fire at this once. We're not going to bet more than we need to. I'm just going to put 200 chips in. If we get action, we'll probably just let it go. Favorable river card, we might make another shot, but that's about as bad of a river card for us as it gets. We'll shove the king 4 suited. Don't like it, but we have to make a move, and this is as good a hand as we're likely to see. Let this go. With the 4s here, we'll just check. Mostly just looking to hit a set at this point. We can raise this. Fold the 6-5. Really good luck here on the turn. We're going to just lead out with it. We don't want to not get value for our hand. And there are things that can outdraw us here. Once again, not that much value to be gained. This player has made really steep shoves a couple times early on, but I haven't seen it yet in heads up. That might have been a bad fold. I'm not really sure. I don't think it was awful either way, but we might should have called there. If we see much more of that, we'll snap it off with that hand. Here we're getting 2 to 1. The problem is if we call and lose, our equity is completely crippled. That is the one-time exception when you do fold in those situations. Generally, you take 2 to 1 or better, no matter what, as long as it closes the action. But if a call and a loss would cripple your equity in the tournament, that's the one time you can fold, and that was the case here. Okay, this player is showing a tendency to come over the top, very wide now. Resteal. We probably should have called with that. We're going to isolate this to just kind of define our hand. We probably should have called with that ace-5 earlier, but now we know, and we'll make that call in the future. Here, I don't know that I'm ahead of this. Min raise over a limp. It's either really strong or really weak hand, and I want to find out where I am right now with the ace-queen, and so that's why I do this. And it looks like it was really weak, but we do get a call. And we will c-bet this flop despite having missed it completely. And I'll make it a little bit of a steep c-bet so that it looks like we hit our hand and we're trying to put him off a draw. If he shoves here, we'll just let it go. We do get a flat call. This, we'll make it 1,000. If he shoves, we'll likely get involved. And we're going to check behind on this. And we'll call. As you can see, this player is just kind of being wild with junk. Here we're going to let this go. So we did make a mistake earlier, I think, by not calling with that ace-5, but ultimately we were able to recapitalize on that and make a pivotal call later and take the tournament for it. Can't get involved here with the re-raise, not getting odds, not likely to be ahead. Looks like we're on the bubble in 2 of these games. See if we can load up another one. You just open shove here, no reason to get cute, really don't want involvement here. This player should be calling with anything. And wakes up with much better than anything. Alright, looks like we move into the money in the step 5, always nice. This player is a reg. I don't know how strong he is, but I see him a lot, and he tends to play the higher stakes on this site, which aren't really that high, but he does play the higher stakes. And with 10-8 here, I think we should just shove it. I think against regs like this, if like 15 blinds or less, you're really not looking to do much other than shove or fold in a heads-up situation. Here we'll just let this go. This is a spot where you could sometimes go any 2. He does like the flat call raises a lot rather than come over the top is one weakness I do remember. And I do, when I say weakness, I really mean that. I don't think it's the right way to play it. Sometimes it works out for him. In this situation, it might work out. Well, not. I mean, now if he hit his hand stronger than I did, he'll just get my money. But we'll bet here. I think flat calling raises at, say, 25 blinds or less rather than coming over the top is in general a poor way to play. Sometimes it works out to your advantage, but with the entire range of hands you're looking to play, I think it's a weaker approach. You tend to lose big chunks of your stack all at once for not much reason at all, and then it's easy for players to call you off. Had he shoved here, I would have obviously called. We're gonna raise this up. We're a little too deep to just shove over it, but we're gonna make it 4x here. It's hard to call this in his position with his stack size. Would have been okay to make it like 8 or 900 there as well. The limp behind with the ace-5 suited, not quite good enough to ISO raise in this level. Shove the queen 4 all day. 7 blinds here, any face card is okay. We're happy with our hand, but we don't want to go crazy with it. There are plenty of aces that beat us, and there are no real draws available, so we're just happy to flat this and not really get overly committed. I'm happy with the lead out with the 2 checks here. I'm happy to just check behind. Again, there aren't a lot of draws available. We did complete some things here on the river, but I think it's mostly to our advantage to just check behind. I think a lot of times that our opponent may have us beat with a bigger ace. I think with 2 checks again on the river, though, we can go ahead and bet a little bit for value. I don't want to make it very big here. Don't want to lose chips unnecessarily, but I do think some hands we beat can call us here. 150 would have been fine. Anything around half pot would have been okay here. We do just get folds. Surprising there that neither other player had an ace. You'll notice that I don't make a lot of steal attempts in the early blind levels with no hand. I don't think that it's really worthwhile. I think it's better to project that tight image and then capitalize on it later. Here with the ace-9 and the cutoff, or the hijack, that's fine to raise anyway, but we're especially inclined to raise it because of the presence of this player sitting out. We'll just fold here. This is a pretty coordinated board. I don't at all necessarily believe I'm behind here. I'm going to make another stab at it for sure. If we get a shove here, we might be inclined to let it go. The river is a jack. It completes one of the draws, but it bricks the flush draw. My intention here is to check call. We want to sometimes induce a bluff. If our opponent bets here, I think we have to call with our hand. If he hit the straight, he's just going to get our money. Or if he had a 10, but if he had missed the flush draw or he had a 9, then we take his money. And so I think it's a good spot. Just check here, fold. We check raise all over with the top pair. That's a good approach in general to play in heads up against a player who limps a lot. Small blind here, we're also going to check raise all in. We have a strong draw and the pot's sufficient enough to take. I like the check raise strategy out of position. I don't like to lead out and have opponents be able to direct the flow of things. Easy shoves in both situations here. We run into top pair in this situation, but I still like the approach. A lot of times we'll get a fold there. The only pair our opponent can have is a pair of 10s really that he's likely to have. If he has anything else, he's folding, and even if he has a 10, we win one time in 3. So I don't think it's a bad spot at all. Alright, so we go out on this table. You can shove or raise this. I'm just going to raise it. Either way is fine. Shove the queen 10. Get second here. See if we can load up another. A lot of these are kind of ending. We will c-bet this. I'm not nuts about it, but I think we should. And then if we c-bet here and we lose, we have a 10 blind shoving stack, so we're still in contention. So that's a good situation to be in here. We do get a limp. We've had a lot of limps from this player. We will abuse it. We haven't abused many limps from him in the small blind. We have shoved into him a lot, but we haven't shoved over his limp often. So Queen 9 is good enough. King 5 is certainly good enough. Let's get these organized. Load up one more here. We'll call that good. Okay, 3-6 is fold. Here we'll just check. Sorry, I'm about to time out. I'm trying to load up these games. This is an easy shove. Easy call for him with any 2 cards. Here we'll just check again. Not really wanting to put any chips in here, just hoping to check this down. River we will definitely bet. I'm going to make it 100. We want to try to get value for our 2 pair. ISO here with the 8s is fine. You can ISO looser than that. 6s would be okay. I wouldn't go any wider than that though. A lot of back and forth on this one in the super high blinds, which is pretty much what you would expect. I'll make it 200 with the aces. With the 8s, we will c-bet. I want to make it a relatively steep c-bet. This is one of the few hands we would fold here with the 7-4, and our opponent hasn't been shoving on us wide either, so we can fairly well assume that we don't even have 2 to we're not even winning one time in 3. Almost any 2 here is fine. Aces, we'll bet at 275. Commit on the turn, and we'll let this go with the 8s. Alright, so it looks like we take second in step 5. That's a good result. Fold these 2. Looks like we pretty well queued up everything that can be. Not a lot of games going on right now at this point in the afternoon. During the weekdays it's a little slower, but on the weekends you really get a lot of good traffic, which is nice. Probably play 2 more games here and then call that good. Well, we have a little bit of downtime. I haven't really talked about any of the players that much except for this one, and the reason why that's the case is I don't really know my opponents at this table or any of these tables, to be honest. I usually play different stakes than these, and so I don't really know these players well. Commander I do know. I imagine he's playing these tournaments right now just because there aren't a lot of other ones going, but he's definitely a reg, like I mentioned earlier. He likes to make a lot of weird flat calls with lower stack sizes, but otherwise he seems fairly solid. Here with the 10-9, you can steal. The problem is it's really borderline. I'd probably go either way here, right here. The problem is if we raise and he shoves, we're really kind of committed to call, but we're really inclined to fold. Because, I mean, even though we're getting fairly good odds here, we can't ever expect to really be ahead with this hand. I don't think it would have been a bad steal, though. And also our stack size is problematic. At 12.5 blinds, when you raise, it's hard to really maneuver post-flop. You really need 13 blinds or more to be effective at that. Definitely don't mind the fold now, since I saw a limp and then he raised it up, so... This is one of the toughest stack sizes to play in these kind of tournaments. At 11 blinds or less, it's really easy to just shove or fold if you know what ranges to use. And then at 13 blinds or more, it's kind of easy to maneuver a little bit with a raise and a small c-bet. But with 12 blinds, it's tough. I would consider it probably the hardest stack size to play in a sit and go when the table's fairly full. for anyone in Nevada who's interested in kind of playing a little bit of online poker, this site is an excellent choice. The payouts, it's never taken longer than 28 hours for me. It's reliable. There seems to be legitimacy here. I don't think there's any cheating going on that I've noticed. If there is, it doesn't seem to have had a big effect. I really recommend it pretty highly. The only criticism I have is that the software is suboptimal. Of course, I'm used to playing on PokerStars, which was the king, but the software could use some improvement. But otherwise, the site is very good. WSOP.com has better software, but lower sit-and-go traffic for those of you interested. Okay, we will go ahead and c-bet this. Don't really need to make it more than necessary. This is a hard flop to connect with. Our opponents will likely float us here with any pocket pairs, sometimes ace high, but otherwise we're generally taking it down. So I think betting half pot or around half pot is perfectly fine there. This is a difficult spot. To ISO raise here, we would have to put in more chips than we really want. We'd have to put in like 300 chips to ISO raise this. Even if we went like 250 or 275, which would be okay, we might get more call. We might get 2 calls that way. So let's say we get 1 call. Well, then we can c-bet, but if our opponent floats us or whatever, and we're not happy with the flop, we really can't continue without commitment. If we get called by 2 players, any c-bet at all is committing, and so making an ISO raise there is tough. Alternatively, you can shove it. I don't dislike this at all. I considered it. There were 200 something chips in the pot. I had 1400 in my stack. It was about 15% of my stack size. I don't think a shove there would be bad. You may have actually been called, believe it or not, by this Jack 10. You'd be surprised what they'll call you with these players that limp so wide. But not to say that Jack 10 is a wide limp there, but you might get called. But even so, I think a shove would have been okay, and I think checking behind is okay. I think the ISO raise creates problems with so many limpers and likely callers, and that's why I didn't do it. Wouldn't have minded the shove there at all, though. Just let this go. Alright, our last game is queued, so we'll just wait. Getting into shove stage in both of these tournaments here. I'll be happy to go all in with this ace-3 if it's folded to us. With this limp, we're no longer looking to shove over this kind of limp from a relatively early to middle position. It looks a little strong to me. I think we're almost always getting called. Would have limped here and seen the flop, but after we get this ISO shove, we'll just let it go. This is highly unusual for a player to limp here and let it go. That's something we'll have to take note of. You won't see that very often. Easy shove here with the queen 10 if it's folded to us. Anytime a player limps with 8 or 9 blinds or less, I usually assume less than 10% fold equity unless I have previous experience against that player showing otherwise. This is just a little too weak. We would shove 10-9 offsuit here to give you an idea. Don't like this player being short, who's more likely to commit himself, but 10-9 offsuit would still be good enough here if it were folded to us. Alright, there's our last game. We'll reorganize these one last time. Would have tried to make a steal with the queen 8 had it been folded to us. With the limp, we'll just let it go. Not looking to do much limping, even behind other players in the 5100 or after. You won't see that much from me. I think it's just a way to spew chips off on the table. We're at an awkward stack size with the 8s. We can ISO raise all day, and that's fine. Had our opponent raised, we would have been at a difficult decision about whether to just shove or make a smaller 3-bet. And we will c-bet this flop as well. It's a little coordinated. We're going to make it 300 and plan on kind of backing off if we get action. Not much we would be able to beat here except for draws. The turn card is actually pretty good for us. I really want to make another bet here. I hate putting more chips in this pot, but I think it's likely our opponent's on a draw here. We get another card. We get one of the worst cards on the river coming off. I think we just have to check it behind here. I think any draw he could have been on is completed. We can't beat a 9 and we're jack. The spade draw is the only thing we could likely beat at this point. It's important to range your opponents on what they could have there and look at the likelihood of still being ahead. I like that I c-bet the flop. I don't know that I care for my bet on the turn. I think I put too many chips out there. The problem is if I just check and he was on a draw, he gets to steal it for free on the turn, and that's why I made another bet. It's a tough spot with my stack size. That's probably the most questionable play I've made this session. That would be the one that I might regret. Not sure that I made a mistake, but not really comfortable with the line I took there. I'd have to go back and look at it again. You can steal this king 8 from the cutoff. It's marginal, but it's okay. If we get any shoves or action behind us, we'll just let it go. We get a flat call from Commander, who I said before likes to do that. And we are going to c-bet this flop. We can just let it go now. Check with the queen 10. This is the player that limped before and was willing to fold, so we can't necessarily put this player on a strong hand here. We'll shove the 8-7 for 8 blinds in the hijack. About the worst hand you could shove here. This is perfectly fine to ISO shove over the top. This time we will shove over this limp. This player's done this multiple times. The suited ace figures to be ahead of his range as many limps as we've seen. This is an easy shove for him. I'm not sure why a player would choose to limp here rather than shove. But we did make the right assumption that his range was super wide and that we could shove and be ahead here. And unfortunately, he was able to hit his hand, but that was definitely the right move to make. Here with the 7-6 suited, this is an excellent hand to look to get involved in a multi-way pot. This has already been created here by this limp, and so we're happy to get it in here. Couldn't ask for really much of a better hand in this situation. Here with right around 6 blinds, obviously we're folding the 3-4, but we're looking to shove in the next 2 hands. Fold the jack 8. Queen 7 is close. I'm leaning towards the fold because I want to shove on this player who's less likely to be committed on the next hand, and Queen 7 being the mathematical even hand, it's just as likely we'll end up with the better hand, and we'll have I think more likely chance for the big blind to fold on the following hand. So we'll take a little bit of a risk and go with the next hand. Definitely happy we made that decision. Would shove here about 85 to 90% of hands. So Jack 10 is way above what we really need. At 6 blinds or less, you're really looking for any decent opportunity to avoid the blinds going through you again. And I chose this player to shove on because he has a medium stack size and is most protected. A player with a lot of chips is more likely to just, make a loose call, and a player with almost no chips is even more likely, because they're at greater risk and need to make a move. So the mid stacks are obviously the best target. So the king queen go against the raise and the re-raise. Fold the 4-8. This is a play that no strong player will ever make. You'll never see a strong winning player make a minimum re-raise over a raise. I've actually never seen it happen once, believe it or not. And so that's an immediate tell already of a weak player. Here we get a limp from a fairly loose player. We have queen 10. I actually think I'm behind his range here, but I think I can get folds here and here potentially. This player getting involved will cause folds here, so I don't know what this player held. I would have been happy if these hands were held face up. Obviously, I wasn't thinking about the player behind me because he wasn't involved yet and there was no reason to consider him. But looking at just the situation from the knowledge we had, this player folded their hand, and this player called in a coin flip situation with dead money in the pot. So I'm really happy at the situation I created here. It was a good squeeze. It was an opportunity to get us back in the game with a decent stack size, that we could actually raise, fold, and potentially move up with, or it would eliminate us. And it was a good squeeze. I think that the vast majority of the time, this player doesn't have pocket kings or aces or, a big hand right here, and so they fold. And then either this player calls and you get a fold over here, or this player folds and you get a call over here. So you're looking at a heads-up situation with a hand that's most likely in a coin flip spot with dead money out there, and so I do like that situation. Looking to get involved pretty loosely in these last two. So far this has been kind of a mixed session. It's definitely been profitable with the step 5 sit and go, would more than discount everything else, but it's definitely been a good session. But it seems like we ran fairly good in the first half and then had some unfortunate luck in the latter half. I think it's an important thing to show sessions where not everything goes your way, because it's important to talk about when things don't work out, why I made the decision that I made, and for you guys to understand it, because it's easy to look at the result of something and say in your head, oh well, I wish I wouldn't have done that, but to still see something not go your way and to be happy that you made the decision is important. We're looking to make the best decisions we can make. The results will come on their own in the long term if we're doing that, and so we should only be concerned with the quality of our decisions. This is a raise you really shouldn't be making. This player has just under 11 blinds. You should pretty much be in shove fold mode at that point. You could potentially raise like aces or kings or ace king if a player didn't know you, to get a little more action out of your hand. But in general, you want to be shoving or folding at that stack size because it's so awkward to play post flop. And you end up in situations where you're committed, and you may not want to be. Yeah, this was an easy shove with the sevens. And it probably would have been a decent call with the ace-10 against a lot of players too. So things worked out as they would have anyway, but both players probably could have played a more optimal line there. Easy shove for us at the jack-6 suited if it gets folded. In this situation, even though your opponent's more likely to call loose, you should be shoving here with any suited face card, I would say any suited 10, like 10 deuce suited or better. any offsuit face card even, like 10-6 offsuit or better. Just about anything really super, super wide. And our opponent is obviously happy to call here with an ace. Okay, we're either committed either on this hand or the next in this one. We'll choose this hand since king high is better than the average hand. And this player has to call, should call anyway with anything. Obviously would be happy to see him fold, but, and he does, wow. That's incredible that players still do that. I mean, this is, I mean, I don't even know why a player, I could have 50 tables going and see to not do that. I don't know why anyone would ever fold there getting such extreme odds. I mean, you could have deuce 7 offsuit, know your opponent had aces, and still you would call. We'll just check here. Have a lot of our chips in the pot if we hit any part of this flop. Don't like the ace being out there, but I mean, there's more than we have in our whole stack out there. We've got to go all in, and even if he has an ace, we can redraw here. We just can't fold this. You get a pair with, you know, your stack size being the same that's in the pot. You just got to commit. It's really foolish to do otherwise. Sixes is an easy shove for us, and this player should not have been limping either. There's no player that has enough chips to be limping here. Limping's an awful mistake at this blind level. There will never be enough chips on the table for limping to be a correct play at this blind level. And we'll easily shove this king 5. This is a good call here. It happened that we had the better hand pre-flop, but this was a good call here against my range. We'll shove the ace-6. But I like his call, and obviously I like my shove with the 6s. You're never folding 6s there. You would even shove deuces, actually. So it looks like we've worked ourselves up to a pretty good situation in this game down here. Hopefully we can counteract some of the run bad that we've had in the last few tables. We'll shove this. Even though this player's committed all in, this player's likely to get all in. I mean, 6 blinds here. We're definitely not folding queen 10. One could maybe argue that this player in the small blind should have committed with any 2 cards having a third in pre-flop, and the odds, I mean, he'd have to have a pretty awful hand to fold there. I don't know what he had, but I mean, even like 10-8, you know, you would want to commit, or I would anyway. This isn't any 2 spot in my position if it's folded to me. And it would be an any 2 spot through both players if, for instance, the big blind were here and I were on the button. As will be the situation next hand. If Sorcerer Dog folds, I should shove any 2 cards. And these players, if they have any clue about what's going on at all, should be calling extremely tight. We'll ISO shove over here to try to gain some more chips and dead money. Even players that don't really know about ICM will understand innately, you know, with a player with 1 blind left who's about to go out, that they should be folding to almost anything. So it would have been a great abuse spot had we had it, but here we were just able to, you know, steal a little bit of money off these players since they had more than this player who was committed all in. Queen Jack obviously figures to be better than less than 1 blind shoves, so we did gain. I don't know that we gained any chips off of that, but we didn't really lose much. We had the potential to really increase our stack size. Here we'll just fold. All 3 players are about equal and all likely to commit. This is a terrible limp here in the small blind. Shove or fold at this stack size for sure. And that's why, I mean, he just lost a third of his stack size for no reason at all there because he was afraid to be aggressive. being afraid to be aggressive usually results in exactly what you're trying to avoid, your elimination. Of course, being aggressive can result in that too. Here we're calling with any two cards. Our odds are 2.7 to 1. That's an any two card call all day. I know a lot of people would fold this, but I don't care. It's a mistake. You should call here with any two cards. Sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't. This is an easy shove, should it be folded to us. Don't really want it to be eliminated here, but we can't fold this hand. And now we move right back into the chip lead. And to clarify on the situation before where I called, I forget what my hand was, it was like 3-5 I think. It's not that I like calling with hands like that, I prefer to fold, believe me. But you have to look at the math of things and not just your emotions about it. And the math tells you to call. Really, with any two cards, and when you're getting 2 to 1 anyway, and so when you're getting even better 2 to 1 as I was, then you have to call. This is tough because this player could potentially eliminate us, but I think this player is committed to call with pretty much anything, and so I like the shove still. Good call here, good shove on our part. Don't seem to be winning too many of these all-ins despite often having the best hand pre-flop. Hopefully we can win one of them. That is the advantage of playing this style that I do, is that I can afford to lose. You know, I've lost almost every flip I've been in, but I can afford to lose the flips because I'm aggressive enough along the way to make those chips up to be able to take those flips. And then when I run good, then all the chips on the table are easily had. Would have called with any two if this player shoved, and he should have shoved with any two as well, by the way. Third of his stack was in pre-flop. Pretty big mistake on his part. This is tough. I'm going to go all in here. Do not want to get called here, but I think this player is passive enough and trying to money enough that I can make that shove. It's actually even a 10 blind shove, but I was hesitant to make it because he had more chips than I did, and this player was nearly eliminated. That narrows your shove range. So now we'll obviously go through these two players with this player into the gun and see this aggressiveness. That's why it's so powerful. Is I've lost, as I've said, numerous flips, and yet I still have the chip lead. Get this out of the way. Alright, we are in the money here. Chance to make our session a little more profitable. Easy shove with the 10-8 suited. Should it be folded to us? Should be calling here any two cards. You see a lot of mistakes, even without knowing your opponent's cards. There's a lot of mistakes being made here. It just goes to show you that even though there's a lot of information out there on the internet about poker and sit and goes and how to approach them, players simply just kind of play that way they want a lot of the time. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, it's easy to take advantage of. Can't get involved here. These players should both be all in on this hand. To do otherwise would be a pretty big mistake, which is what happened. Okay, now we're in a situation where effective stacks are just about 3 blinds, so we're pretty much going to be all in almost every hand until someone wins this tournament. It's really incredible that these players are like this player in the big blind, only had 3,000 chips and 1,200 of them were in the center. I don't know how you can fold, but apparently it happens. Obviously calling here. You just can't wait around for hands and three-handed play. You just can't do it. And now we're heads up. Any two shove here. Our opponent, the big blind, is more chips than he even has left in his stack. Any two, you would be committed to call here, and he should be calling any two. Though from previous experience, he may have actually had hands in his range he would fold here. I don't know. Looks like we're gonna redraw on each other until we end up splitting the pot. Of course, that's a fantastic result from my perspective, having the 5-7 pre-flop. Be committed to call here no matter what. 3.5 to 1. Even if he has aces here, we would be happy to call. All right. So I hope you all enjoyed that. Turned out to be a good session overall. Running well in the first half, running a little poorly towards the second half, and then finally winning this tournament out to make up for it. I hope you all enjoyed that. There were some really good spots here where we made the right decision, but things didn't work out. And also one spot where I played a hand fairly awkwardly and made a little bit of a commitment error, and showed you exactly the results that can occur from that. And so definitely we all still make mistakes, and we can all still learn from them. And I like to point out the good decisions as well as the bad, so you can all take it all on with you. But I hope you enjoyed that, and y'all take care.